Okay, here we go. These are the top two games of 2010, in my opinion. This game, I was really surprised that I decided to put it this high on this list. And it is Heavy Rain for PS3, PS3 exclusive. Let me just go ahead and cover some of my tracks here before people start commenting. I realize that the gameplay is one-dimensional. I do. That's one of the main reasons people hate on this game is because it's not much of a game. Let me just be totally candid here. The gameplay basically amounts to timed button presses and making decisions and reacting to prompts on the screen. That's it. Very one-dimensional gameplay, and I will admit that. But I think if you complain about the gameplay in Heavy Rain, you're really missing the point. Because Heavy Rain is 100% a game that is about the story, that is about the characters, that is about the experience and the narrative that you craft during it. Let me just say that. Let me give you a little overview. Basically, you go between playing these four characters, and the storyline is one of the characters, the Ethan Mars, the dad. Oop, that guy right there. He loses his son to a serial killer. His serial killer kidnaps his son, and this serial killer is called the Origami Killer, and he basically gives Ethan, the killer, gives Ethan a chance to save his son. Basically, there are these 5 trials he has to go through, and if he successfully completes the trials, then he gets some letters of the address where his son is being kept. And not a majority of the game, but definitely the emotional center of the game is this story, the father-son story. And the most intense parts and the most memorable parts are the trials of this game, when you play as Ethan and you have to do things to yourself and to other people in order to save your son. It's like, what lengths will you go to as a father to save your son? The other characters, they have their roles. You play Norman Jayden, who is like an FBI agent whose gameplay is like, he's about the only one who has gameplay different than the other characters. You basically investigate, and using these special glasses, you can investigate and see clues and evidence and stuff like that. And so his is a little bit more two-dimensional. His gameplay is a little bit more complex. And then there's her, which I forget her name. Oh, crud. There's Scott, and I forget his last name, and her, I totally forget her name. Oh, no. Why do I forget? Is her name on the back? No. Madison. Yes, I got it. And they play their scenes as well. But really, I think the emotional center, the character that I most closely associated myself with, was Ethan Mars. And this game is similar to Mass Effect 2 in that characters can die. If you mess up, or if you make a bad decision, or, if you decide to take the story one direction, characters can die, and they're just dead. They don't come back, there's no respawns. I mean, you can load a previous save, but I would encourage you not to, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But characters can die, and it sort of adds a little bit of urgency to the game. It makes you feel like you actually have these 4 characters' lives in your hands, that they are essential. And I think maybe that it's that realism, that sense that you won't necessarily just win. That there is a chance that you'll come to the end of the game and you won't be happy with the ending. I think it's that really is what ties the gamer to the experience, ties the gamer to the narrative. Because I think if you have a hand in crafting the story, then it becomes very personal to you. It's like your story. You helped the characters through it, And they call it interactive drama, and some people say it's a movie with QuickTime events. And I think movie with QuickTime events is oversimplifying it. A movie, there's only one ending. Usually. I mean, sometimes you get a movie and it has alternate ending. But there's a preset narrative that you cannot affect anyway. The only way you can affect is how you perceive it, how you take it in. Here, you can affect the narrative. You can change the direction it goes through your mistakes or through your decisions, be they good or bad. And I've seen some of the endings to this game, some of the bad endings, and they are pretty grim. I mean, they can get pretty grim. I've seen like the worst ending, and it's very grim. I got the best ending without having to reload any saves or anything like that, which I guess I'm a little bit proud about. I did everything right. I'm good at pressing buttons, to those of you who are still angry about that this game exists. about loading previous saves. I would encourage you, if you play this game, not to load any previous saves. If you mess up, if you die, to just go. Because I would also encourage you to, once you get to the end, to never play the game again. And I know that sounds weird. Because for me, when I look back on it, I constructed this complete story that I starred in, that I motivated the characters to do, that there are a couple decisions that I actually put the controller down and paced to think about. I know I'm a dork. It's just a game, but that's me, and that they felt very real to me, and getting the good ending was great for me. And maybe if I got the worst ending, I would think differently. I'd say, oh yeah, no, play it as much times as you want. But I think playing it once and without disrupting the stream of consciousness, the storyline, without disrupting it with saves, I think that's the best way to experience this game. And it stuck with me for a long, long time. I still think about this game. I still think about the characters I played as. I still think about the time I had with it. And honestly, it's unlike any other game I've ever played, and it's so unique that I think you absolutely have to check it out. Shallow gameplay or not, give it 3 hours. Honestly, give it 3. The first hour is pretty dull. Give it 3 hours, 2-3 hours. If you still hate it, if the story has not sucked you in, then the game just isn't for you. But I think for anyone who values story, who values character development, who values the power of affecting your own narrative, creating your own story, then I think that this game is absolutely a crowning achievement. Quantic Dream did an excellent job with this game. And I'm going to stop rambling because I talked forever about that. My number one game of 2010 is Red Dead Redemption. Did they notice that cut? I mean, I tried to make it seamless. I think it's seamless. Yesterday's video was choppy again at the end when I was talking about this game. So I'm doing another video. Let's hope this one doesn't get choppy halfway through. Okay, Red Dead Redemption, my favorite game of 2010. I admire Rockstar more than a whole lot of game developers. For this reason, and I'm about to tell you. You look at other games, and you see a lot of trends. Rockstar, I think, they take their storytelling and their characters and their gameplay to venues and locations and time periods that other people don't really seem to want to visit that much. I mean, I loved Mass Effect 2, okay? I loved Mass Effect 2. It was my third favorite game of 2010. But it's a futuristic shooter. Think about how many futuristic shooters are out there. You got your Halo, your Killzone, you got Resistance, Gears of War. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, I'm just talking about like the big popular ones. I mean, you look at the other tiny ones that there are people just jumping on the bandwagon making futuristic shooters, and it's like white noise. You don't even ever hear about those games because they're so typical. And I think those games have their own merit and are good for their own reasons. And I really liked Mass Effect 2. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of the Halo series, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I love that Rockstar doesn't slip into that. I mean, sure, you take a look at Grand Theft Auto. Yes, it is their stand-by franchise that everyone knows. But that's not their only thing they do. Take a look at Bully. Back in, I forget what year, but for the PlayStation 2. I mean, that was a unique game. It really was. How many other games can you think of where you play a middle school student and you just play, and the storyline is just in school, and like that's the objective, is to be in school? I mean, that doesn't really sound like much of a game, but Rockstar managed to take their, winning character design and storytelling power and put it into that scene and made it a wonderful game out of it. And now you take a look at this game, and you take a look at its predecessor, Red Dead Revolver, which I didn't really play because I heard was only okay. But, they breathe new life into the Western genre. I mean, I don't think the Western genre is an archetype that many people associate with these days. I don't think people think much about Western stuff. I mean, Westerns used to be popular, they're not really anymore. But that didn't slow Rockstar down. They knew that they could make a good game. They knew that they could challenge themselves and set a game in the Wild West, and they did an excellent job. It's a soaring achievement for Rockstar. And now, I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but their next game is L.A. Noire, and, you don't really see a lot of just detective stories. It's kind of more like an investigation detective story, which is not a whole lot of shooting and stuff, not a whole lot of action, which I think is going to be an interesting way to look at the life of a cop, and will probably be excellent, because I don't think that Rockstar puts their name on too much bad stuff. They're one of those game developers who just kind of is always good, and Red Dead Redemption is no exception. Okay, you play John Marston, who is basically he's a man with a history. He used to run with this gang of outlaws, and now he's sort of settled down. He's put away his put those wrongs into his past, and he just wants to live with his family, live his life out quietly with his family. But the government doesn't thinks that he needs to earn that freedom, and so they tell him, if you want to be with your family again, you need to kill off all the living members of the gang of outlaws you used to run with, and that's the center of the story. And I think what makes the story so perfect and so pitched so well is because of John Marston, the main character. I think Rockstar over time has become more mature in their character designs. You take a look at, Nico Bellic from Grand Theft Auto 4. Way more complex than any other Grand Theft Auto protagonists up to that point. Way more complex, with a much more sort of tainted honor that really made him feel like a real person and made me want to play that game and maybe wanted to see the conclusion to his story. John Marston is I think their crowning achievement when it comes to character design. You play a man who is a married man. He doesn't stray. He doesn't. I mean, you can have you can sleep with hookers in the Grand Theft Auto games, but not this one. John Marston is a married man, and he will honor that. And he has he has an honor system. He's relatively simple. He's a simple man, but without being too dumb. He's not like the dumb stereotypical cowboy. He's like a hardened man, and he's just a whole lot of fun to play. It's great to see him interact. He has a dry sense of humor. I think he is just about one of the best characters. Actually, I'm going to say it. Probably the best character that Rockstar has ever created is John Marston. And you get really attached to this character, and that is really what drives the game for me, is your attachment to John Marston and the wanting to progress the story. And I will say that the ending is, well, for those of you who know what the ending is, it's kind of hard to describe without revealing too much, but it'll definitely stick with you. The ending of this game will definitely stick with you, and it fits with the whole vibe of the game, sort of like things are changing. The Wild West is kind of not around too much anymore. It's transitioning into more of a modern age. It takes place in 1911. The Wild West is dying, and I think that the ending of the game is a really good send off to the whole feel of the game. And let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. The gameplay is similar to Grand Theft Auto in that it's sort of a third-person shooter at the very simplest. But you got your lassos, you can do stuff like that, and there are these challenges you can play which are a lot of fun. And you can like look for treasure and stuff like this. And there's so many deep little crevices to get into. Multiplayer is fun. You can go online, posse up, and just free roam. Decide to take down some forts or wreak havoc on a village just with your friends. It's totally up to you. And then there's the more traditional, like Cowboys versus Indians and deathmatch kind of games if you want a more focused multiplayer experience. And I think it's a great multiplayer experience. I didn't mess around with it as much as I did the single player, but it definitely is definitely one of the great facets of this game. I think Red Dead Redemption is a game that everyone should check out, and I think the thing that impressed me the most about it was that I'm not into cowboys. That's not me. I don't really care too much about cowboys. And when my friends asked me if I was getting this game, I was like, well, I don't know, maybe. And I spent like some of my last bits of money on this game, like before I didn't get my first paycheck yet, so I spent like my last couple dollars on this game, and I don't recommend it. Okay, spend money on stuff that matters. Don't spend it on video games. But boy, was I kind of glad I did, because they showed me that that Rockstar can take an archetype that I am not even that. I don't even enjoy that much, and that they can make it fresh and new and a fun experience and a memorable one. And I think that Red Dead Redemption will go down in history as probably one of the greatest games that Rockstar has produced. One of the more unique games as well. So, Thank you, Rockstar, for this excellent title. And that, everyone, is my top 10 games of 2010. I think I probably talked about that one a little too long. These last two I probably talked for forever about. But thanks for watching. This list was hard to put together this year. Last year, there was like an easy winner. It was Uncharted 2 for me, way ahead of everybody else. This one, there was some jostling of position, and it took me a long time to sort of put those in order. But I'd love to hear what you think of my list. I'd love to hear what your favorite games of 2010 was. Leave it in the comments. And Let's Play is coming soon. And thanks for sticking around, and stay tuned. And that's all. So I'll see you next time.